It's the Great Depression. You woke up rich, then went to bed broke. There was no war, no warning, just a terrifying crash that wiped out $200 billion and sent America spiraling into a decade of hunger and dust. So what the hell happened? Let's rewind to the party before the fall. Imagine waking up in 1922. World War I is over, the mustaches are ridiculous, and the economy is thriving. Factories have stopped building tanks and started pumping out toasters, vacuum cleaners, and fancy new refrigerators. New York's skyline shoots up like it's on steroids. Jazz music becomes the Wi-Fi of the 20s, loud, everywhere, and full of energy. The economy is booming, and people genuinely believe the good times will last forever. Trust me, this decade is going to roar. The engines of growth are humming. Henry Ford's moving assembly line changes everything. A Model T that used to take 12 hours to build now rolls off the line in 90 minutes. Cars flood the streets, creating a massive demand for oil, steel, and rubber. Every linked industry is pulled into the slipstream. As cities light up with electricity, America falls in love with gadgets. By 1929, 10 million homes have radios, bringing music and ads right into their living rooms through glorious AM fuzz. But while the cities are partying, rural America is struggling to even get on the dance floor. Farmers who got rich during the wartime demand now face plummeting crop prices. They borrow money to modernize, but those shiny new tractors don't save them. They just help them go broke slightly faster. Meanwhile, urban America discovers its new favorite hobby, buying stuff they can't afford. Want a radio? Finance it. A car? Finance it. Stock in a company that makes hats for dogs? Definitely finance it. Banks are thrilled by this innovation, offering installment plans to anyone with a pulse. Banker: sure, I'll marry you. We've been on 2 dates. But the true heart of the mania lies on Wall Street. The stock market becomes Disneyland for adults. Thanks to margin loans, anyone can buy $100 worth of stock with just $10 down. The remaining $90? Who cares? Stocks only go up, right? You know things are bad when your barber, your butcher, and the shoeshine boy start giving stock tips. Barber: trust me, kid. Utilities are hot. I made a killing in stocks. Customer: you're still a barber though. Barber: yes, but spiritually I'm a tycoon. Between 1924 and 1929, the Dow Jones quadruples. Stock prices break free from gravity and reality. Why look at a company's profits when you can look at the hype? Companies get creative, setting up holding companies that own other holding companies, which own absolutely nothing. It's just layers of empty air and stock mania. A few people try to sound the alarm. Roger Babson: a crash is coming? Wall Street responds by buying more stock and telling him to go touch grass. Nobody hears the warning over the sound of cash and optimism, but behind the champagne and jazz, cracks are forming. Rural debt climbs. Consumer debt balloons. The economy is partying on the edge of a cliff, and nobody is checking if the floorboards can hold. October 29th, 1929. America woke up rich and went to bed broke. That day went down in history as Black Tuesday. The stock market didn't just fall, it performed a flawless 10-meter dive into concrete. Ticker tapes spit out red numbers like they were possessed. Phones rang non-stop. Suits screamed. Traders fainted. Over $14 billion of wealth vanished in a single day. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $200 billion today. This wasn't monopoly money. It was real homes, life savings, college funds, and dreams, all gone. Outside the stock exchange, crowds gathered in stunned silence. Some held hands, some cried, and others just stared at the ground, trying to understand how an entire economy had tripped over its own shoelaces. The Roaring Twenties hadn't just ended. They had face-planted into a brick wall, taking everyone's retirement plans with them. The crash triggered a brutal domino effect. First came the margin calls. During the boom, people bought stocks on borrowed money. When the market tanked, brokers demanded the money back immediately. Investors scrambled, but paper fortunes had vanished overnight. People who were rich on Monday were bankrupt by Thursday. Then came the banks, those grand institutions with marble floors and oak desks. It turns out they were built on worthless paper and blind optimism. When they couldn't get their loan money back, they collapsed. People panicked and literally ran to their local branches, banging on locked doors to get their savings out. Bank teller: everyone, please, your money is completely safe. Okay, not completely. Entire families lost everything. Panicking. US banks called in their overseas loans. European economies, still held together with duct tape after World War I, were thrown into a blender. Global trade choked and fell by half in just 3 years. And yet, amidst the panic came the denial. Newspapers printed sunny headlines. Politicians insisted the worst was over. President Hoover. The economy is fundamentally sound. Meanwhile, millions sat at empty dinner tables wondering which part of that sentence was supposed to help. By 1931, the music was completely gone. The lights were off. The party was over. What came next was the sound of factories grinding to a halt and of fathers whispering apologies they never thought they'd have to say. Joblessness soared to 25%. 1 in every 4 Americans who wanted to work couldn't find a job. Detroit watched its auto plants shutter one by one, and production collapsed by 75%. Bread lines snaked through downtowns. Mothers lined up at dawn for thin soup. Teachers reported students fainting in class from hunger. America was starving, literally. The suicide rates surged. Marriage rates collapsed, and birth rates fell. Who could dream of a wedding or a baby when they couldn't guarantee dinner? Just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, the sky turned black. In the Great Plains, years of aggressive overfarming had stripped the land bare. When a massive drought hit, the soil turned to dust. Towering black blizzards swept across the heartland, blotting out the sun, burying crops, and suffocating livestock. Millions of people packed everything they owned into broken-down cars and fled states like Oklahoma and Texas, driving west to California in search of jobs that didn't exist. In Washington, President Hoover refused to offer large-scale federal aid, calling it dangerous and un-American. His name quickly became a joke for suffering. Shantytowns were called Hoovervilles. Newspapers used for warmth were Hoover blankets. Empty pockets pulled inside out were Hoover flags. In the summer of 1932, thousands of desperate World War I veterans marched on Washington to demand their military bonuses early. Congress said no. Hoover said no, and then the army came. Veteran 1. I fought for this country. Veteran 2. So did I. Tear gas was fired. The camps were burned. For the first time, Americans watched in disbelief as the government turned its weapons on its own heroes. Radicalism and crime surged. Bank robbers like Bonnie and Clyde were seen as folk heroes striking back at a broken system. America wasn't just broke, it was broken. And yet, even then, something held. Not belief, not optimism, but endurance. People survived because they had no other choice. By March 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt stood at the podium for his inauguration. Millions leaned in to listen. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. It was the first deep breath the country had taken in years. FDR didn't wait around. Within weeks, young men in threadbare clothes were handed shovels, tents, and a purpose through the Civilian Conservation Corps. CCC Foreman, you're here to plant trees and save the country. Young worker. In that order, CCC Foreman, yes, the work's progress. Administration hired millions to build roads, bridges, schools, and post offices. They didn't just rebuild infrastructure, they rebuilt national pride. The Tennessee Valley Authority put up dams, bringing electricity to rural towns that had spent generations in darkness. FDR also wanted to fix the broken machine, so he built rules. He created the SEC to regulate Wall Street and the FDIC to protect bank deposits so people's savings wouldn't disappear again. Banks reopened, and this time, people deposited their money quietly and hopefully. He introduced Social Security, ensuring that older Americans wouldn't have to work until they dropped. Even the arts got a job. The government paid painters, photographers, and writers to capture the soul of a recovering nation. Hollywood chimed in too, with movies like The Wizard of Oz bringing bright color into a gray world. Slowly, unmistakably, life stirred. GDP rose. Unemployment crept downward. The dust settled, literally and figuratively. People dared to imagine a future again. Cities buzzed, restaurants reopened, and radios played swing music. The Great Depression didn't end with a massive celebration. It ended with blistered hands, tired backs, protective legislation, and a nation choosing piece by piece to rise again. But as America stood back up, factories started humming with a different kind of production. They weren't just making consumer goods anymore. They were making helmets, boots, and ammunition. The world was shifting. Something darker, louder, and global was on the horizon. And this time, the whole world would feel it.